Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's layout is for the November Cyber Crop at Mystical Scrapbooks, and the challenge is to scrap lift a favourite layout and add texture. I'm going to scrap lift this layout by Christine Davison that I found on Pinterest. I'm going to use Coco Vanilla These Days papers to do this, and I'm going to also use a 6x6 photo where she has used a much smaller one. I think it might be 3x3, and I'm going to select numerous papers from the paper range and cut them so that they are 2 inches by 3/4 of an inch. These pieces are going to create the background of my layout. I played around with the placing of my pieces until I got the pattern the same, or well, similar to the one in the sketch that I'm lifting, and I then used my black ink cube to ink around the edge of each and every one of those rectangular pieces of pattern paper. Once that was done, I used my art glitter glue to attach all of those papers to my black cardstock background. The pattern that I've got here wasn't that hard to work out. I just started at one side and worked my way across, just following the picture I had of the layout I was scrap lifting. I've left probably around about 1/4 of an inch, I suppose, between each paper. In the layout that I'm lifting, she has actually used a machine to stitch between each of these, hence the bigger gap, but I couldn't be bothered getting my sewing machine out, so I've used faux stitching on mine. But I just go ahead and work my way through the whole pattern, trying to line it up and keep a fairly even distance between each piece. So you can see here the herringbone sort of pattern, the edges of each piece lines up with the piece next to it. So the side of the piece on the left lines up with the top of the piece on the right. Now that all my pieces are stuck in place, I'm going to use my trimmer to trim the excess or the hanger over pieces off. I did think I would use my scissors, but I'm pretty hopeless with scissors, so I decided to go with the trimmer so that I know it will be straight and there won't be pieces missing. So now it's time to do the stitching, and as I said, I didn't get my sewing machine out to do this. I used a Posca white pen, 0.7mm, to just draw faux stitching between each one of those pieces of pattern paper and around the top border of the layout. This didn't take as long as I thought it would, it went quite quickly actually. Time now for the photo. The photo on the original layout is 4 inches square and my photo is 6 inches square. On the original layout, Christine has matted her photo on white cardstock. For a border around my photo, I've just used an emery board and filed around the edge, which gives me a very fine white border. To attach my photo to my layout, I'm going to use a piece of craft foam. It's sticky on one side, not the other. So I'm going to put the sticky side against the photo and then use some of my art glitter glue to attach the photo to the layout. Now the added challenge for this particular challenge in the cyber crop is to add texture to your scrap lifted page. To do that, I'm going to use my Crafters Workshop Chevron Tiles stencil and some Nuvo drops. Now I'm using Nuvo Vintage Drops in Peachy Keen. I'm going to put those Nuvo drops through this stencil. First of all, I decided to just go up to the edge of the photo, so you can see I've got it masked off there. But when I lifted the stencil off, it didn't look finished. It looked too sharp and cut off, so I continued, put the stencil back on and continued across the whole page. While I still had the stencil on my Nuvo drops, I added a thick coat of Dress My Craft frosted sugar powder, and once that was laying on top of the Nuvo drops, I used my fingers just to push it gently into the Nuvo drops to make sure that it was going to stay there. I did that right across. Once I had finished going across with that, I set that aside to dry and got busy and fussy cut lots of elements from the pattern paper. I just played around with placement for these elements, and when I was happy with the look of the embellishments, I inked the edge of them and then used my art glitter glue to attach them to the page. None of these are attached with foam or resin at all, they're just attached flat to the layout. I've included some flowers, some butterflies, some leaves, some stems of leaves, some of the word things, like the title is the one at the top with above the photo that says "These are the best days." There's also a couple of other word strips in there as well. Oh, I've just noticed that I did use some foam tape behind a few of the elements. I had a set of the wood buttons, so I added a couple of these to my clusters as well. So there we have my layout for today. I'm going to put a link in the description box below to the Cyber Crop Challenge. There's prizes over there, so if you are interested, pop over and check it out. There's lots of fun to be had. So I'm pretty happy with my layout today. It's not exactly the same as the scrap lifted one, but I think that's the idea of scrap lifting, isn't it? You get the idea and then you run with it and make it into your own. So thank you for watching my video today. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it if you would subscribe, and I hope you can join me for my next video.